Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the At the Pine Lawn podcast. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. Chandler, it's the day you've been waiting for forever, bro. It is mock draft day number 1. We
Oh
are going to
yeah.
have our first round mock draft today. And I guess this being your most highly anticipated, one of the most highly anticipated moments of your offseason. How hyped are you?
So hyped. This is the best time of the season for me. We're getting into March Madness. It's mock draft season. It's off season coming up as well. Oh,
It's good
magnifique.
times. Good times. If you haven't already, by the time this episode comes out, secret is that we're actually recording these at the same time. But
Mm.
if you haven't already seen our Patriots Dream offseason episode, make sure to go check it out. Chandler and I have a full, detailed plan for the Patriots offseason for
It
the
was probably
2024
really
offseason.
good.
Yeah, it's going to be a great episode, so make sure to check it out if you haven't already by this point. But if you're here now, welcome. It's mock draft time. I'm probably going to start out just because being the most honest I possibly can, I'm going to be a lot less insightful than Chandler is just because he's a pro at this stuff. So I will get my loser draft out of the way before we get to Chandler. So we're going to do this a pretty interesting way. I'm actually going to share my screen thanks to Pro Football Focus offering a download feature. So here we go. Chandler, can you see my screen?
I can.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay, all right. I think I'll be on the recording too, so it's fine. Let's do this full screen. And here we go. Okay. So here is my first round mock draft. As we said, today is going to be just the first round. As the offseason goes on, don't worry, we'll be getting into more in-depth mock drafts going beyond the first round. Starting off with the easy is the top 3, being the 3 quarterbacks that are obviously going to go in the top 3, at least obviously to me. I have Caleb Williams going number 1, Drake May going number 2, and Jaden Daniels going number 3. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about 2 and 3 switching, whether Drake May is going to go 2 or Jaden Daniels is going to go 2. I ultimately decided that by the time we reach the draft, this whole, I guess, fear around drafting Drake May will dissipate because I do think he's probably the better quarterback out of Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Not to diss Jaden Daniels at all. I think he's an excellent quarterback, and thus why I have the Patriots taking him at 3. Trust me, even if I thought the Patriots are going to take him at 3 and I didn't want them to take him at 3, I would not do it to put across that message. So I have Jaden Daniels coming to the New England Patriots at pick number 3. If you saw our offseason episode by this point, both Chandler and I's draft are going to make a lot more sense for you. We do drop a couple hints in that episode as to who
Mm.
we're thinking about drafting. So welcome to this state if you're here after seeing my offseason episode. Now we got Jaden Daniels at the helm. Anyway, continuing on, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. going number 4 to the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, best player left on the board at this point. Got to go with the wide receiver there, especially in a wide receiver needy team like the Cardinals. Then I have Joe Alt going number 5 to the Chargers. They're going to want to protect Justin Herbert. He already has a good amount of weapons around him. Of course, you can say that last year was a bust with the wide receiver selection in the first round, but regardless, I think that strengthening that line around Herbert with Jim Harbaugh in charge is a smart move. Moving on, 6, 7, and 8, we have Malik Neighbors to the Giants. They're definitely going to need some help after the dumpster fire that they're stuck in right now. Get a very talented young wide receiver and Neighbors in there. Brock Bowers going to the Titans. I think they're at a stage where they just have to pick the best player on the board. They kind of have an overhaul to do in their system, not really any like key superstar pieces. And if you want Will Levis to continue and try and be that guy, give him a great talent like Brock Bowers and see how it goes. Cooper DeJean going to the Falcons at 8. I hope I said that right, Chandler. Am I right?
DeJean, close
Okay,
enough.
DeJean. Okay.
He's gonna be the
Um,
first white corner to start an NFL game since like 2004 or something.
yeah, so yeah, I think that will be a valuable selection for the Falcons. As we've seen over the past couple years, they always need defensive help. So
Sure. Thank you,
getting
Joe.
possibly the best corner on the board there at 8 for the Falcons works out. Number 9 for the Bears again, Roma Dunze, wide receiver out of Washington. Got to get a pairing for Caleb Williams. They already have a pretty talented wide receiver group, but still, you need that young, dynamic guy. And Dunze fills that role. Going into 10, Jets kind of get screwed on this front. They got to go with a tackle. Talise Fuaga is my selection for the Jets. God forbid Aaron Rodgers decides to come back this year. You're going to need some guys to actually protect him coming off one of the worst seasons from an offensive line in the
Yeah.
NFL this year. And that's saying something considering that we have covered the Patriots all year long and they had a pretty bad O line. When we played the Jets, it was like bread and butter.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a hole that they need to fill. Number 11, Vikings, I have going Byron Murphy the second. JJ McCarthy is the next big selection here at number 12, quarterback out of Michigan. Broncos need a quarterback. Obviously, as we saw this past week, they released Russell Wilson. That's a big news story coming out over this previous week, which you probably already know by now by the time this episode's coming out. So fill that quarterback role. Maybe a reach here at 12 for McCarthy. I think Schindler and I would both kind of agree on that based off McCarthy's skill set, but going off positional need, you really need a quarterback if you're Denver. So take a chance on McCarthy. 13, Quinion Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo to the Raiders. Not much to say about this one besides that they can add to their defense or defensive help there, I should say. Jerzon Newton going to the Saints out of Illinois. Then I have Nate Wiggins, a corner, going to the
Fast.
Colts.
It's
Uh,
fast.
yeah, he is fast. I knew that. Regardless, Dallas Turner out of Alabama to the Seahawks. I feel like they need some defensive line help, so go there. Troy Fatanu, tackle out of Washington. Um, this next pick is going to show how much the draft stock has changed throughout the season. But
Yeah.
regardless, I think the Jags need help on the O line, keep protecting Lawrence. Um, that's probably going to be their number one key right now for him to succeed. Bengals do the same thing for Joe Burrow. I can't even say his first name.
Just call him Olu. Everyone calls him Olu.
Okay, Olu Fashanu.
Yeah.
His draft stock has fallen off. He was a projected like top six
He
pick.
was fighting for Joe with Joel for tackle one going into the season.
Yeah, and that totally fell off the face of the earth. Out of Penn State, I still think he's a talented guy.
Yeah, he's just
Um,
got some technique issues.
exactly, and it could pan out for the Bengals. It just all depends on how it turns out, I guess. But for the Bengals, I think it's definitely worth it to take him at 18. Terrion Arnold's at 19, cornerback out of Alabama. If you're the Rams, obviously you're looking for a quarterback. Um, hint, hint, because we're actually recording this previous, but everybody knows here. But regardless, um, Rams looking for a quarterback. I don't think they're going to reach for Bo Nix at 19.
I
Uh,
don't know. I've seen a lot of mock drafts where that happens, but I don't think so. I don't think they should either.
yeah, that would be kind of a crazy reach. I mean, if you really think you need a quarterback that bad, and it's worth passing up on Arnold or someone below him here on this list, go for it. Because obviously that is your need right now. But I mean, you got Matt Stafford still, right? I mean, why is
Yeah, got him for at least another 2 years, probably.
yeah, so I don't think it's like a huge like you need to do this now kind of thing. You don't
Agreed.
need to slam the red button yet.
They show that they can win with Stafford still. With this iteration of the team, they should try to capitalize on that.
Another quarterback needy team, the Steelers, not going to go quarterback either with Bo Nix. I have them going Jackson Powers Johnson at 20.
Great pick.
Um, need to fill that center void in Pittsburgh, and that's what they do with this 20th overall pick. Dolphins at 21, J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Um, I mean, not really many holes to fill in Miami in terms of talents, but how could it hurt to further benefit your offensive line for Tua? So that's a good pick by them. 22 Eagles, I have going Jared Verse, an edge out of
Yeah.
Florida State. For them, I think it's basically just pick the best player on the board. He fell a little bit in my mock draft, so for the Eagles to try and pick up the most talented player they can at all times is probably the strategy that they're going for. Obviously, still vying for a Super Bowl championship. Um, Texans at 23. They get this from Las Vegas. Is that what that says? I think
That's
so.
from UCLA. Oh, the pick from Vegas. Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
they get the pick from
Cleveland. Cleveland.
oh, yeah,
Just,
Cleveland,
just from
CLV.
the
I just
Toronto.
saw LV, my bad. They get the pick from Cleveland. Yeah, part of the Deshaun Watson trade, the last bit of the Deshaun Watson trade, actually. Um, but they get Latu Latu out of UCLA. Um, Same scenario for the Texans. You really had a banger draft last year. At this rate, you're just trying to get the most talent you can in house. I
Mhm.
think that's what they did with Latu. 24 Cowboys, Brian Thomas Jr. I feel like the Cowboys have been picking wide receivers every year, it feels like, but regardless, it's still one of their top needs just because of the overhaul system that they had these past couple years. They get a great wide receiver in Thomas Jr. Um, Number 25, I have the Packers going to Marius Mims, tackle out of Georgia. Jordan Love in his developmental stages, you got to protect him. Mims, I think, is a good pick for that. Peyton Wilson, a linebacker out of North Carolina State, is going to the Bucks. After this overhaul that we're going to see probably this offseason, they're going to lose a good amount of free agents, especially on that defensive side of the ball.
Devin
Uh,
White's a free agent.
yep, exactly. And filling a void like that with Peyton Wilson, I think would help them out a lot. Um, Cardinals with their second first rounder of the draft. They're going to go Graham Barton, a tackle out of Duke. You're
Mhm.
committing to Kyler at this rate by drafting Marvin Harrison. You gotta, protect him, get him his best resources that he can. And honestly, I think the Cardinals might be shaping up for a bigger bounce back than some people think.
Love the
Um,
Cardinals this upcoming year. Love them.
yeah, Chandler's been a long time Cardinal supporter,
I've
and I
always
think
liked the
with
Cardinals, but I've always liked the Kyler Murray Cardinals, but they're in an excellent position this upcoming year.
Yeah, if they get a guy like Barton and then obviously Marvin Harrison at four,
Yeah.
pair that with Kyler and they could do some scary things, especially in a weaker NFC that we've seen these past couple of years. Um, 28, Tyler Guyton, a tackle out of Oklahoma. I don't know if I said that right. I'm sorry.
I think so.
Okay, good. For the Bills, I mean, it's just like, I guess, strengthen your offensive line more. I mean, as
Sure.
much as they're kind of in turmoil right now in terms of trying to win, that's kind of their goal. Zach Frazier, a center out of West Virginia, is going to the Lions at 29. Lad McConkey, wide receiver out of Georgia, to the Ravens at 30. A kind of a no-brainer. They need wide receivers. Tyler Nubin, safety out of Minnesota. Not really a need for the 49ers, but rather just picking the best player on the board at 31. And finally, at 32, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. Chiefs need wide receiver help, and I have them going to Mitchell at with the last overall pick of the first round for mine. So, with that, Chandler, before we kind of transition into yours, why don't you give your overall thoughts on my mock draft here?
Cool, and I just shared mine with you, I believe, another document. But
Okay, cool.
I don't think it was bad. There were people that fell that I think shouldn't have fell. The one that I was really question mark was the Lions pick. I don't love them taking a center when they have Frank Ragnow, who's already one of the best centers in the league. Um, but
Yeah,
other
that's
than
actually
that,
kind of
yeah,
a good point.
some people fell, but there were a lot of very nice picks in there. Some picks that are similar to mine, some picks that are the same as mine. Yeah, overall, I think it went pretty well. But let's see how mine compares a little bit. Did you get it?
Yes, I did. And without further ado, Chandler, we will pull up your mock draft
Oh
here.
yeah, I'll try to be relatively brief on each person because there's 32 picks, obviously.
And let's see. We
Yeah.
are sharing now. Can you see
Okay,
it?
here we go. Yeah, you can full screen it, maybe. Whatever, that's fine. Cool. We good to hop in?
Go for it.
All right. So I really vacillated between going whether I wanted to do what I would do as each team or what I think is going to happen. I did a little bit of a mix of both. First pick, if I'm the Bears, I'm personally trading this pick and I'm rocking with Justin Fields. I think that there's still absolutely a quarterback in there. I think you can build a team around him. I think he's got all the tools that you need. But also, Caleb Williams is a generational talent. You can't really go wrong with it. So I have them picking him at one. That Carolina trade is really biting them in the butt, having lost first overall pick, obviously. Two, I don't think this is what should happen. The more the days go on, the more I feel like it's going to happen, though, that Jaden Daniels goes number 2 to Washington. And that leaves, I don't know how well you can see this. If we get Drake May, 7 years and we'll be back there. 6 years and we'll be back there. For me, Drake May is quarterback number one. He will not end up being picked one, of course. It's going to be Caleb Williams. Those three are going to be the first three picks, no matter how you shake it. It's in some order. It'll probably end up being, I think it's going to end up being this, but I don't think it should be. I think it should be May, Williams, and then Daniels. I'm a little bit out on Daniels, just based on what I see. I know that's kind of tough to say because right now I think he's the odds-on favorite to be our quarterback next year. But long story short, what I see, he's obviously incredibly talented. He's very frail. He's not good at taking hits. A lot of the things that makes Lamar Jackson, who was his direct comparison, I suppose, Jim Daniels hasn't learned yet. And also, Lamar sat an entire year. Lamar was the 32nd pick. Lamar wasn't ready to be a quarterback at the beginning. So, of course, there's that factor. Jaden Daniels is also a fifth-year senior, whereas Caleb Williams and Drake May have only been in college for 3 years, respectively. There's an age aspect to it as well. For me, it's clearly May, Williams, Daniels, but it's going to probably end up being Williams, I'm thinking Daniels, and then May. Four, moving to that, arguably the best player in the draft. If we are at three and Drake May is not available, I would very, very strongly consider picking Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be quarterback for the Patriots regardless. There's three quarterbacks in the top, three picks at the top. It's going to be one of them. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be excellent. That Cardinals team, like I talked about, is going to be dangerous with that Marvin Harrison to Kyler Murray connection for the next 10 years. That's going to be a wild team. Very excited to see that. Brock Bowers, I picked at 5. I've seen a lot of people go with Malik Neighbors here. A lot of people go Adunze. Some people go Joe Alt. But I see with Jim Harbaugh, one of the big tenets of his offense in at Michigan was use of the tight end. And Gerald Everett is leaving right now. He's in free agency. He's most likely going to go. You get one of the most talented, if not the most talented tight end we've seen in the draft in the past, I don't know, 50 years or so. You always get that. I think that that's an excellent weapon for that team. They are ready. They're poised to finally live up to that potential. I think Brock Bowers could be huge in doing that. 6, I have Malik Neighbors. I love Malik Neighbors. In any normal draft, without Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors would be consensus #1 wide receiver. He ran an excellent 40. I don't have that off the top of my head. But what I do have off the top of my head is after Xavier Worthy, who just broke the combine record with the 4.21, fastest 40 time in combine history, Malik Neighbors, for his 10-yard split, which is, in my opinion, the most important part of the wide receivers 40, because that's when you get the real break off the line, you get the explosion. He was only 0.001 seconds off of him. So Malik Neighbors is an absolute burner. He's incredible. He's got great route running as well. He's got great body control, great agility. I think that's a slam dunk pick for a team that hasn't had a #1 wide receiver since a former LSU wide receiver in Odell.
Yep.
7, Joe Alt. Love Joe Alt. He's 6'9", 320, and he ran a 5.05. He's a freak athlete. There are a lot of freak athletes in this draft, but he is arguably the freakiest. And the Titans have a horrible offensive line. They need to see what they have in Will Levis. I think that they have something decent enough in Will Levis. I'm not going to say that he's a top 10 quarterback. I think he's probably in that 15 to 20 range.
Yeah,
That's
it could pan out.
Probably about where he'll chill there. Maybe end up as a top 12 quarterback for his career. I think that that's an excellent pick for them. They need to shore up that offensive line. It is very bad. They have a lot of holes to fill, but offensive line is the most pressing for me. 8, first defensive player, Dallas Turner. I'm fairly confident that he's going to be the first defensive player off the board. If not him, then somebody might jump a bit to take Terry and Arnold, who I'll talk about later. But Dallas Turner, they need an edge. They need a pass rusher. They need something on that defense for Raheem Morris's new team. And I think that Dallas Turner, who, again, freaky combine performance, ran a 4.47, I believe.
Wow.
Absolute weapon at his size, and he's an incredible pass rusher as well. Should be very good in Atlanta. 9, we've got Rome Odunze, just a very talented wide receiver. Again, really unfortunate that this is such a strong wide receiver class at the top. Because again, in a normal year, there's a chance that he would go 1. Or he would be the #1 wide receiver. He's a great contested catch receiver. Michael Penix had a lot of confidence in him, just throwing him the ball when he was completely 50-50. A 40-60 ball for him could be a 60-40 ball. Or a 40-60 ball for someone else is a 60-40 ball for him. He is an excellent weapon. He's going to be great for Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet. That's a good offense. They're starting to build something there in Chicago.
Finally.
10, Talise Fuaga, same as you had. I think that this is somebody who's really shot up the draft boards in the past month or so. Oregon State had an excellent year this past year. He is going to fill a nice role in that team. He's a great athlete, really talented, really polished as well. Sometimes he has his games where he doesn't look great, but then he will have the games where he's like, "Oh, I'm the best tackle in this draft, by the way." So once you can, if you can coach that, if you can coach that into him to play like that every game, you have a future all-pro tackle right there, anchoring your team for the next 10, 15 years. Speaking of people shooting up the draft board, Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. This guy is an absolute weapon. He like a month ago, he was pretty consensus mid to late second round pick, and now he's my first corner off the board. He is everything you want a top draft pick to be. All reports is that every team loves him. His interviews, he's an incredible interviewer. He's a freak athlete. The only issue with him, and we see this every year with a couple people, is the caliber of competition. Toledo in the MAC. Shout out UMass for now going to the MAC flagship right here. Going to be in the same conference as Toledo, but all the teams above, all the people above, were all Power Five players. Toledo is a Group of Five team. They don't play as strong competition. But his Senior Bowl performance in the one-on-ones, incredible, which is very difficult for a corner to win a one-on-one when everybody knows what's going on. It's incredible. He had a very nice performance. His draft stock is shot up. I think that he's going to be a very talented player. 12. I don't love the pick, but I'll explain why it has to happen. JJ McCarthy to the Broncos. It has to happen because 85 million. Does that number mean anything to you, Nick?
Yep.
What does it mean?
The amount of dead cap that they took on.
Oh yeah, over the course of 2 years, 85 million. It's absurd. They are going to be, frankly, I don't see it. They're going to be awful for the next 3 years because they're not going to be able to sign anybody. And because quarterback's such a position of premium, you need to get a quarterback on a cheap contract for that span. That's
Yep.
going to be JJ McCarthy. He might stink. He might be pretty good. He might stink though. He wins everywhere he goes. To his credit, he wins everywhere he goes. He was 26-1 in college. I think he's only lost like 3 games since high school. He's a winner. He goes to winning programs. He wins while he's there. He could be very good in the NFL. There is absolutely a chance he's traitsy, but hands the ball off a little too much. Reminds me a little bit too much of Trey Lance in retrospect. Um,
That's
so
fair.
JJ McCarthy at 12. Don't love it. I think it's necessary. I think it absolutely will happen though. And I think he's clearly better than all the other quarterbacks behind him. Terry and Arnold at 13. I've seen a lot of reports that he's going to be the first defensive player taken. I wouldn't be stunned if they take him at 8 because to pair him with AJ Terrell, having lost Jesus, what's his name? Drafted by the Lions.
Oh.
Jeff
Yep,
Okuda.
yep, 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 yep.
After they tried that, did not work. To pair a real, if you can have two cornerback ones, you can have two lockdown corners on each side. That gives you a great chance to go against because you're competing against the teams in your division. You're going against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. If you can have two people that can completely shut them down, that's a great shout. I'm sorry, excuse me. I
Yeah,
was
I was like,
thinking
wait, what?
I was thinking about it for the Falcons, pitching myself for the Falcons. Jeez. But even for the Raiders, you're going against explosive offenses like the Chargers. You're going against explosive offenses like obviously the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And you can even argue that the Broncos have wide receiver talent in Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. So
Yeah.
having people that can completely shut that down. They tried that with people in the past. They tried that with Damon Arnett. Did not work.
Nope.
So they're going to try it with Terry Arnold, and I think it's going to work. 14, JC Latham. A lot of people's corner tackle number 2. Some people's tackle number 1 above Joel, which I think is a little crazy, but he's very talented. The Trevor Penning experiment has failed. The offensive line is getting older. The whole Saints team is getting older. I'm waiting for it to completely collapse because they have ungodly amounts of deferred money and dead cap every year. It seems as though they're always coming into free agency with negative 30. I think it was like negative 70 million last year or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how long they survive for. It's
And they can
literally
still
been
be
so long.
competitive, but it's such a bad division and they still can't win it. I think that this JC Latham pick is what they have to do. I think it's what they're going to do. I think it's what they have to do. 15, like I talked about, Nate Wiggins, super fast. I think this is also where you have Nate Wiggins,
I
right?
think so.
Yeah, he ended up getting hurt during one of his 40 runs, but he
Oh,
is on
jeez.
record saying that he thinks he could have broken the record. He thinks he could have run a 4.20. And I'm inclined to believe him with what I see. He is so fast. He's very talented as well. Um, Not quite as good as Mitchell and Arnold, but every draft, it seems as though the cornerbacks always shoot up towards the very end of the process. If you remember, like Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley, they were projected to be like pick 7, pick 8, pick 9, pick 10. They ended up being, I believe, 3 and 4 or 3 and 5 in their respective drafts, I think. Um, very talented,
Yeah, yeah. I think
something something
yeah.
around
I
that
think
range,
I
right?
definitely think Sauce was top five. I thought he was five
Yeah.
though.
Whatever. They were both top 5 picks.
Yeah.
Um, excellent pick there. I think that he could shoot up a little bit more, but I think 15 is just about right for him.
Mm.
16, Troy Faltanu. I think that he can kick into guard. You can put him at tackle and then kick one of the tackles into guard as well. They should be looking to up this offensive line, especially with the former Washington offensive coordinator now being the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator. This is a slam dunk. Penix, one of my big knocks against him is he never faced a lot of pressure. He didn't face a lot of pressure. Why? Troy Faltano. He was an excellent tackle. I think that he's built for this level. I think he's going to be either an elite starter at guard day one or a pretty good starter at tackle day one. 17, wide receiver U, Brian Thomas Jr. They are losing Calvin Ridley, most likely. They need a guy for Trevor Lawrence. They need somebody who can have separation. Brian Thomas is 6'3". He ran a 4.33. He's a freak. I say that a lot about all these guys, but if you're in the first round, you're probably a freak. These guys are incredible. He is a weapon. He can. I think they have to go wide receiver. I think that really
Yeah,
what.
that's actually a good, that's a good pick. I didn't really think about the
Um,
fact that they were going to lose Ridley for sure this offseason. So,
Yeah, there's a gap between for me at least there's a gap between Brian Thomas and the next wide receivers. The next wide receivers are all still very talented, but I think Brian Thomas is the last of that tier.
uh-huh.
And I think he's kind of in his own tier actually. I would consider Marvin Harrison top, Neighbors and Odunze kind of together, and then Thomas definitely on his own, and then the next guys. So you're getting a really talented receiver that again in another year, in a normal year, probably could be a top 10 pick. You're getting him at 17. Kind of feels like, and I'm not making this comparison obviously, but it kind of feels like Justin Jefferson's situation when he goes at 23 because that was a strong class as well,
Yeah.
or 22. Um, yeah, great there. Speaking of people falling, is this also where you had Olu
Yep.
Fashanu?
Yep.
Good pick then. He's somebody who came into the cycle as competing for that number one tackle position. He could be at 7. He could go up there. I don't think he will. He didn't allow, through a certain window, he didn't allow any sacks or any pressures, but that's partially because of the offense that Penn State runs. It's very quick, it's very short. There were a lot of complaints from that team that they didn't throw the ball enough, they didn't move the ball downfield enough, and that shows in Fashanu's development. It shows in his tape. There's stuff to work on. He's obviously still very talented. He's got a high motor. He can be really good. You just need to do it and put some work in. 19, this is a BPA for me. Cooper DeJean. Um,
Damn, he fell
he's,
compared to my draft. Oh my
I
God.
think that yeah,
Didn't I
PFF.
have him at the Falcons at 8?
Yeah, PFF. Oh, to your
Wow.
credit, PFF has him very high. They have him as I think the second. I think they have him as the best defensive player in the draft, which is a little crazy to me. But I think that he's still incredibly talented. He's a pick six machine. He's going to be the first white corner in so long. Shout out Jason Seahorst, I think was the last one
Uh-huh.
for the Giants. He's very talented. He's going to be really good, and I think that that's going to be kind of the player they've missed since they lost Jalen Ramsey. That's the role they're going to try to fit. And I think that he's very talented. Hopefully, it'll work out for them. 20, slam dunk pick. I thought about quarterback. I don't love any of the quarterbacks in this draft beyond the top 3 even. I'm fine with McCarthy. Also, the Steelers don't have a good history of picking quarterbacks at 20. That's where they picked Kenny Pickett.
Yep.
So I think that this is a slam dunk pick here. I think this is the same one you made. Interior
Yep.
offensive line can play guard or center. Jackson Powers Johnson, somebody who has shot up the draft boards in the past month as well. Very talented skills. He's got a lot of skills. He's very polished as well. I think that's a very nice pick. Now, maybe my biggest faller of the entire draft, and it's not even that he's really falling per se, it's that there isn't a spot for him before, which is a shame because he's arguably a top 10 player in this draft, Byron Murphy.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's crazy. He's
this
going
one
at
I think
21.
has to happen
That's a steal for the Dolphins.
because they're losing Christian Wilkins most likely in free agency. This is a like for like replacement, maybe even better. I love Christian Wilkins. That says a lot of how talented Byron Murphy is. His tape is excellent. His testing is going to be really good at his pro day as well. Absolute weapon. Again, Tracy play. The next couple of players are all very Tracy. Amarius Mims as well. The Eagles have a history of picking players before they need to pick players, specifically on the offensive line. They'll pick Mims. He won't play for a year, maybe two. He'll learn behind Lane Johnson, and then he'll come in and he'll casually be a top six tackle in the league when he's there because he has that kind of ability. He has that kind of physical traits. He just needs the reps and he needs the mentoring, and he'll get that in probably the best offensive line in football. 23, spoil again, best player available, Jared Verse, somebody who fell a lot. I've seen him as high as 11 in some people's drafts. Traitsy, he ran an excellent 40, which I don't have off the top of my head. He had a really good combine in general. He was the first person kind of to come out on all the reports to have a really good combine. And I think that's going to be a very important pick for them to pair him across from Will Anderson, really bulk up that defense that D'Amico Ryans can really take advantage of because we've seen how good of a defensive coordinator he can be when he was in um, San Francisco.
He had a
Let him
4.46, by the way,
4.46. Yeah, that's crazy. That is a
at
wild.
247 too. So
Exactly. That's stupid. That's like it's akin to Dallas Turner. It's very similar. Dallas Turner ran a 4.47, I believe. Turner has a little bit better tape than Verse, better competition as well. That's why I put him significantly higher. That's why he's the best defensive player in the draft. But Verse, very talented player. 24, don't love it. This is a very deep tackle class. Jordan Morgan could be a really good tackle, but there is certainly a drop off from Mims to Morgan. And as you've seen, because you have watched our off season, there's a reason that I have the Cowboys taking tackle. I think that they need to, and I think that we're going to profit off of their need to. So Jordan Morgan, he's gonna have. I don't know exactly their situation. He might have to be ready day one, which is a little bit of a worry. He was talented coming into. He was a highly rated draft prospect coming into his last year, like last year. Had some injuries, I believe. Came back, put on a good season of tape, but there's always that concern about an injury history. We'll see how that goes. 25, Kool-Aid McKinstry, somebody who fell a lot throughout the course of the season, not necessarily because of anything he did, but because everybody else just performed better, including his teammate Terry and Arnold. But Kool-Aid McKinstry was arguably the corner one coming into this draft. We've seen some kind of issues with Jair Alexander in the organization, with him getting suspended for a bit because he messed up the coin toss last year. I
mm,
thought that was very goofy, but I think that that might lead into the need to have a corner. And Kool-Aid's also one of the best players available, and they have the luxury of being able to take that. Could have gone tackle, could have gone a couple of positions, but I think that corner is the best there, and I think Kool-Aid specifically is the best. Also, great name.
mhm.
27, Houston trade here for Arizona. Tyler Guyton, he's my next best tackle available. It's simple as that. You had Barton as yours. I had Guyton as mine. That's really all there is to say about that one.
Mm.
Um, yeah, he can play both tackle positions, I think, in the next level. I think that he'll be very good. Probably a lot of people at this point in the draft is when you start to be like, oh, it's not quite as valuable as that 15 pick.
Yeah.
You start to see it. 28, but excluding that, because Lad McConkey is going to be so scary, and I'm horrified that he might go to Buffalo. I think they need to take one because the Gabe Davis experiment has very clearly failed. He will have his games where he has three receptions for 130 yards and two touchdowns, but then he'll have a 4 game span where he doesn't get a target even because he
Yeah.
never gets. Lad McConkey, oh, what a route runner. It's such a lazy comparison to compare him to Cooper Kupp, but also it's not a bad comparison either. He is fast. He ran, pull up his time, Nick, while I'm talking about it. I want to say it was in the 4.3s. It might have been like 4.39, maybe even less than that. He is maybe maybe other than Marvin Harrison Jr.
4.39. You were right.
4.39. And look at me. Um,
What a guy.
maybe the best route runner in this draft. Um, he's just excellent with his feet, and he carved out like for the past 3 years he's been the second weapon on that team, which is crazy because I mean to be consistently the second best weapon on your team for 3 years is wild. But when Brock Bowers is that number one weapon, you're not going to hop him, of course.
Yeah.
But he was getting the number one corner target still, so you can argue for that aspect of it. And he's just excellent. He's an out for his quarterbacks, be that um, Carson Beck or the guy who was the guy who won a national championship twice, whose name I somehow can't remember, who was picked by the Rams last year. Help me out, Nick.
I don't
Uh,
know.
uh,
Wait, who do you have? Who do you have for the Lions in the last four?
Lions. I got a Jerson Newton. Oh yeah, Jerson Newton. He's fell a lot. That's it. AD Mitchell, Donnie Mitchell. They need a wide receiver. That's big for them. That's a great pick as well. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., best corner on the board. That was really a BPA kind of situation, specifically for the defense. And then the man who broke the 40, the man who's going to be what they need in Tyreek Hill, Xavier Worthy. He's very talented. He was a highly drafted prospect as a freshman, kind of fell off a bit, but still has all the traits to be a really, really good player at the next level.
Chandler, I love it. My overall thoughts, I would say, you made a lot like more position-based picks. I feel like I lean
Yes.
more towards like best player on the board for some of these teams where I don't think it would cop out at that. So good on you for that. Um, May to the Pats. That's crazy. And
Yeah.
also your analysis on all the wide receivers in the draft is something to point out because there's so many talented ones. And I think that's why a lot of Boston media right now wants the Patriots to draft a wide receiver at 3 or trade back and draft a wide receiver and then get a guy like Penix or Bo Nix later in the draft. I don't agree
Awesome.
with that scenario at all, just because
Neither
I
do
think you
I.
and I are both on the same boat of like we are off the quarterbacks after the top 3, especially after the top 4. So I don't think that's really worth it. But
Mhm.
regardless, just goes to show you how deep of a wide receiver class it is. And although you don't have the Patriots getting Daniels, I think if they do get Daniels, I'd be really happy with it. I get your concerns, but I'd be happy with that. But
Sure.
anyway, I'd be happy with May too. I think either way it'd work
Well,
out.
I'd be pumped with man.
Yeah, that would be crazy. But regardless, I think that just about does it here for our mock drafts. Don't be afraid or sad. There are plenty of mock drafts to come throughout the rest of the offseason. Chandler and I are going to do a couple more. So these will adjust a little bit. These are just kind of our base thoughts for the first round. So hopefully you enjoyed. As we said, if you haven't already seen our Patriots offseason breakdown episode, our dream offseason for the Pats, make sure to check it out. It came out earlier this week or last week, depending on when I post this. It was the most previous episode, so make sure to go check it out. And follow us on Instagram at.the.pylon for further updates. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakis. We'll see you back here next episode.